items together. The first item is the Town of Littleton has applied for a $23,230 federal grant under the USDA Rural Development Community Facilities Program to purchase lighting equipment for the Opera House. This will be an informational meeting to solicit input from the public. So we're not looking for any voting from the select board this evening, but we want to be able to give the public an opportunity to share and give input. So again, it's $23,330 federal grant for the Opera House to purchase lighting. Andrew, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll just say something here. Let's see. So the USDA has awarded the community facilities grant in the amount of $23,230 toward the estimated project cost of $55,490 to upgrade lighting in the Opera House. The estimated project match is $32,260. Voters approved a special warrant article for $20,000 towards this project in 2019. The USDA grant application was originally submitted in 2018. The Opera House plans to purchase and install new light fixtures, programmable lighting console, and other needed accessory components. This equipment will be more efficient than that which has been previously available, and it will allow the Opera House to better serve the clientele with up-to-date and modernized equipment. And as of this point, we've released an RFP, and we've received, I think it was 5 or 6 responses.
We received 5.
5 responses, and the RFPs were presented in a way that the bidders could bid on other components as well as each one individually. This project is separate, but also part of the rigging project and the sound system project. And so we're in the process right now, Sue and Doug Damko and myself, of reviewing RFPs and then looking at the vendors to see which ones meet the criteria. So,
You did select one.
yeah, I think Dark Star. Right.
Well, they were able to provide all 3 services for us, the rigging, the lighting, and the audio. And they also gave us a good bid price, as well as their expertise, their professionalism in speaking with them. They had good plans, and they can do it during our time frame.
Is there anything as far as liability that they have insurance and they're all?
Dark Star is out of, I want to say Burlington, Vermont, but, I'm not sure if it's Burlington, but it's in Vermont, and they've been here before doing different things, and they're very well qualified.
Any other?
I think it's good. I know that the lighting in there was aged, and I know with all the great performances that Sue's got coming in, I think it's only fitting to really have some modern technology to meet their needs.
And our biggest problem has been trying to bring in big name entertainment, because we don't have the lighting, we don't have the audio, and when we do ask people to come, we have to ask them to bring their own speakers, their own equipment, and practically their own engineer to do everything. And so in order to get top name performers,
They expect to have that.
we couldn't get some, yeah. I mean, we could get the smaller names, so we did well with those, but if we really wanted to bring in some performers and entertainment and top quality entertainment, it's imperative for the opera.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments, questions?
I think we need to look up soundproofing next.
Yeah, I know, I was thinking about that. So there's nothing to vote on. Item number 2 is the Town of Littleton has applied for a $250,000 federal grant under the Northern Border Regional Commission Economic Infrastructure Program to support the purchase of land and development of the Littleton Riverfront Commons. The Select Board will vote to authorize the receipt of grant funds.
Okay.
I want to give an opportunity to
Yeah.
share more.
And so there is a letter that I have that was addressed to the Northern Borders Regional Commission and the Land Water Conservation Fund dated May 13th, 2020. This correspondence outlines the project's description and funding sources. The town has received favorable review from NBRC for amended project scope and budget as outlined in this correspondence. Let's see if I can. Here's Siri in the works. Okay, so this, let me just make sure I'm on the right one here. This is Littleton Riverfront Commons. Okay, sorry, I was about to read the Main Street Phase 2. So on March 2019, the town of Littleton executed a grant agreement with New Hampshire Department of Natural Cultural Resources for the Land Water Conservation Fund grant in the amount of $200,000. To date, no funds have been spent. In April 2020, the town received grant amendment from the Northern Borders Regional Commission for Economic Infrastructure Development grant in the amount of $250,000. The grant agreement was dated August 13th, 2019, but neither party was able to confirm that the agreement had been received by the town prior to April 2020. Sorry, I thought that I put that on silent. I apologize. So at the suggestion of NRBC, the town of Littleton is submitting the scope of work, no-cost budget amendment prior to the execution of the agreement. On behalf of the town of Littleton, I would like to respectfully request the approval of scope of work budget as presented in the following pages. So if we were to look at the budget, the total cost for the project is estimated at $962,000. And we're looking at the Northern Borders Regional Commission Land Water Conservation Fund appropriation from taxpayers that's already been approved, individual private donations, a land donation value from the current property owner, Ron Muro, and now we're also looking at the already approved tax credits, which is for the next phase. So just a little more information about the project and where these funds are part of.
Questions? Any comments from, as far as public comments?
How much of that is secured already?
I believe we have, for which piece? We have the donations all secured. One thing we have the Northern Borders secured. We have the land water conservation is secured. We're going to go after additional funds through land water conservation through another process. The private donations are secured. The land donation value is still in flux. Just the reason is because the federal requirement to do what's called a yellow book appraisal. We've had that done. The appraisal's in. There's the next step in that is to have a certified yellow book certification done by somebody who has the qualifications. We've had a contractor do that, and their initial assessment came in with a number of issues that they highlighted in this 115-page, commercial appraisal. And so right now we're working through to try to have the appraiser and the certifier get to the same page. Worst case scenario, we could result in a lower donation amount because if the value of the property the yellow book initially had was like $640,000, and we're purchasing a property for $440, I'm giving estimates. So if the commercial appraisal has to come down, then that'll just lessen the donation amount, land donation amount that we're using for a grant match. So everything's, we have everything secured for pretty much for phase 1, and we're working towards having everything secured for phase 2, and that's the tax credits, the New Hampshire CDFA tax credits. They'll fund that.
Anything else? So I guess this one we do have to vote on, so I would entertain a motion that the select board will vote to authorize the receipt of the grant funds.
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, good, thank you. Item number 3, the town of Littleton seeks to apply for federal funding through the Economic Development Administration's Public Works Program to support the Littleton Main Street Phase 2 project, which includes street and pedestrian improvements, lighting enhancements, water and sewer upgrade, and parking. The Select Board will vote to authorize Town Manager Andrew Dorset to submit the application and to sign any and all documents associated with the grant.
Okay, this is, I'm going to put some images of each one of the projects up there. The Main Street Phase 2 is one we've been talking about for a while. The total project cost is now approximately $5.54 million. The EDA Public Works grant request is for $2.5 million. Other funds are approximately $3.2 million. We have a community development block grant application that we've submitted for $500,000, and New Hampshire Department of Transportation contribution, we're estimating right now at $700,000. That's not a grant, that's work that they've already planned to do in the roadway. So we're attempting to use that as a part of the match. $2 million would come from town funds. These are the amount that were approved at town meeting for sub-area 2. Since Main Street Phase 2 is in sub-area 2, we're able to use those funds. So funds will be used to complete Main Street Phase 2 project, which includes securement of rights-of-way and intersection realignment, bringing traffic to a safe 90-degree entrance onto Meadow Street from Saranac Street. Meadow and Main Streets will benefit from infrastructure updates, traffic calming, including narrowing of the roadway, curb bump outs, expanded sidewalks and pedestrian crossings, as well as improved signals, signage, and lighting for vehicular and pedestrian traffic. A small parking area will be constructed to help alleviate downtown parking issues. Local businesses will experience and expand access to Littleton's multimodal trails. Concurrently, water and sewer will be installed to increase efficiency and decrease costs and enhance the town's ability to support increased development. Engineering work will also be completed for the project. So that we've anticipated this, the EDA funds need to be tied to economic benefit. And so we're saying, based on previous studies and also actual on-the-ground benefits, that we will experience job creation, retention, and private investments. And of special note, this area is in Littleton, and all of Littleton is an opportunity zone, so that's an incentive for increased development and investment in private business. So.
Good, thank you. Questions?
On the draft that you have for Bridge Street, that's an awful sharp corner to turn. And I know it's going to be tractor trailer route
Yep.
for deliveries down the back street.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we looked at this with New Hampshire Department of Transportation years ago. What they have, they've set aside, I believe it's $200,000 in their budget to alter the intersection of Bridge Street and Meadow Street, because that will all be within their right-of-way. And so they're going to take a look at and make adjustments that needed for the radiuses to get on and off of that road. Also, the consideration to get onto the new Saranac Street, those will be engineered as part of this project with the proper turning radiuses. And Doug can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Any public comments, questions in regard to that?
Go back to when you finished down there, it was advertised that we were gonna have 500 jobs. How many jobs do you got? What would be the for?
So we did a survey, I think it was last year, for a report. And since the project was started, there were 120 jobs at that point. And I don't think we were able to survey every business that's down there, but there was an additional 120 jobs from the start of the project. So it's on pace to have some significant impact. And if I recall, I think
It was advertised when we voted on it, it would be 500 jobs.
I think that was over quite a long period of time to expect that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Any other comments, questions? So this one we do vote on. So the select board will vote to authorize town manager Andrew Dorset to submit the application and to sign any and all documents associated with the grant.
So moved.
Okay? Second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good. Thank you. And that does end the first public meeting. And so 5:15, actually we're a little bit behind, but so 5:15 we go into the second one. Second public hearing is regarding unanticipated funds. So this is for the purpose of accepting Gopher COVID-19 Relief Fund Grant, CARES Act, in the amount of $140,000. This hearing is being conducted in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 31:95B. The grant amount has a maximum of $140,000. The funds are to reimburse the town for COVID-19 supplies medical equipment, welfare, COVID-19 related costs, and other eligible expenditures. The first request submitted for the months of March and April is in the amount of $20,562.32. And the second request submitted for the months of May and June is in the amount of $17,048.80. Questions on that, or Andrew, do you want Karen?
I have some handouts.
Okay.
So I think for each one of the selectmen.
Oh, thank you.
Andrew, sorry.
Okay.
I believe Seal already has hers. So this gives you an overview of the very front page reimbursements from the Gopher grant. We have received the $20,562.32. A portion of that is welfare reimbursement, and a portion of that is our COVID-related supplies, medical, anything that's needed in the office for supplies or any of our departments. The second request has gone out. I have not received that yet. $17,048.08. Reimbursing welfare, $9,022.71. And COVID-related supplies, $8,025.37. Request number 3 I'm currently working on. It's due out August 15th. And I'm putting all of the employees' time that pertain to COVID into this request. And this employee's time means somebody being out sick, somebody having to go for testing, someone working on the grant, such as myself, someone working on welfare, meeting times that we've had to go to. The amount of employees' time we're submitting is $17,393.46. It includes some overtime for the fire department as well. I'm requesting for welfare reimbursement, $17,134.43. COVID-related expenditures of $3,284. That may be a little bit higher than that because I'm still looking through all of the expenditures and make sure I capture everything. And then we have water and light COVID-related cost of $12,369.28. I'm not sure how much the Gopher grant will cover of that, but we're going to submit it.
Could you explain a little bit about what that means? Why we're asking for reimbursement for that?
Because it's an expenditure beyond what we had planned in the budget. We have had to go out and make sure that our employees are safe. We've had to put up plexiglass. We've had to put on alarms on the doors. We have to wear masks frequently. We need to sanitize frequently. We have extra cleaning, especially in the Opera House because of public meetings that we have here. We have some extra hours that part-time employees are working in the transfer station because we have a lot of recycling. It's amazing how much more recycling there is since this all began. People are cleaning out their houses. They're getting rid of things. Of course, you've got extra trash besides because you're getting rid of a lot of things that may carry germs on it. The water and light, some of their related costs pertain to setting up their office, putting in plexiglass or glass where needed. We're looking at doing some microbiologic.
Basically, we have a
Yeah.
space review. They're going to go through and give us like a best practices for keeping sanitary offices. I think it's like UV lighting, looking at our air filtration, carpets, things that are.
And that's similar to what the fire department's looking at too for their building, because they're the ones that would be in contact with it most frequently. Looking at anything that we could use to keep germs or COVID-19 down. and keeping the chances of anyone getting sick. It's hard enough to cover with someone being out or having short staff, but you have a whole crew out, it would be hard. So the total grant that we've been approved for is $140,000. With all of this requestment that I'm sending in, that totals up to $87,791. We have a remaining balance of $52,208.43, and that's if they agree to everything that is being submitted. They have not agreed to pay the ambulance yet, the second ambulance, but I'm working on it, trying to document why it's needed.
That one's dependent on FEMA.
Depends on FEMA as well. We have till the end of August on this grant. So I'm trying to get through everything I possibly can, and I have deadlines to submit the reimbursements for. But if we can get approval to receive and expend those funds in total, we won't have to come back for another public hearing on this. Then a quick flip, it's partially Gopher because some of the things I can submit under the Gopher grant, I have a portion that gets submitted to FEMA. So as of right now, an estimate of $240,000 is the total grant. I'm not asking for approval on this until we get the award, and we'll do a public hearing on it. But as of right now, I'm looking to submit at least $18,722. I've submitted request number 1 and request number 2. We still have a balance, if everything gets approved, of $221,277 that we can keep submitting for. This grant doesn't run out until December 31st and may be extended. But these are two of the grants that have come into play during this time, this unprecedented time.
Okay. Any questions?
Not right now. Wish I'd seen this on Friday. Just all the numbers to go over.
Well, I think one of the numbers too, Karen, you just barely applied today for reimbursement for the $18,722.34, right? Is it showing a
I've
date of 8/10?
applied to FEMA, and FEMA hasn't gone through all of their process yet. So I haven't requested it yet. I'm trying to get through to FEMA and make sure I have all the documents. So I haven't even got the award letter saying that it is a definite award. They've already committed to some towns, and I know the amount that they're looking at is actually higher than the 240 I have on here, but I'd rather estimate low and get more back.
So that's projected.
It's projected. And a lot of that's for the overtime when it relates to COVID. And that would be when our EMS department, because Gopher also covers a portion of that. So if someone is transported in the ambulance to the hospital and they are suspected of having COVID, the ambulance has to go through a cleaning process. We have to call extra staff in to help with that whole process, including call company, and call company is included as part of the payroll reimbursement. So part of the FEMA piece isn't just overtime for the firefighters, it's also the call company hours to come in and help cover. So we're going to go after whatever we can possibly get. FEMA pays 75%. The Gopher grant pays 25% of whatever FEMA agrees to pay.
Okay. Open it up for public questions, comments. Okay. So we do have to vote on this one. It's,
Make a motion to accept and authorize to expend the Gopher COVID-19 Relief Fund grant to the CARES Act in the amount of $140,000.
okay,
Second?
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Do you
Thank
also
you,
need one
Karen.
for FEMA?
No,
No,
not until we
Not
have
today.
to publicly notice that, and I need to get the award letter first.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
And then the third one, which we can start, we've got about 2 minutes to go, but do you think it's okay to get started on the third public hearing? It's 5:30. We probably should wait till 5:30.
Yeah, probably wait, yeah.
Just in case somebody else
Some
wants
people
to show
watch.
up.
Yeah. We apologize for the heat up here. It's not just that the topics are hot.
Yeah.
It is warm in here, but if we turn on the air conditioner, then we can't hear each other.
And I'm putting that in for a warrant article.
Good.
For here and the office.
Yeah.
And we can connect, right, Doug, right to what we presently have, so it should be much better.
Okay.
So I appreciate your patience with this. Aaron, if you want to drop off a sign at my house, I'll put one. Okay, so it's 5:30. This is the third public hearing. The selectmen will hold a public hearing on today, to discuss the utilization of municipal property from the Industrial Park Road East to the end of Burndy Road for OHRV/snowmobile connector trail. Do you want to share a little bit more with that, Andrew?
Before you do, if you want, I can give the history going back to when it was first put in
Okay.
at
Would-
any point in time.
Okay, great, thank you, Brian.
Yep. Yeah, and so right now we have a OHRV vehicle trail permission form. So the permission being requested is to provide public ATV, UTV, trail bike access on town of Littleton property. And I'll just read what's off this form. It is understood that the use of my property for said purpose in no way holds me liable or responsible for accidents that may occur as a result of others using my property as provided for in Chapter 212, Section 34, Laws of New Hampshire, RSA 212-34, Duty of Care. There shall be no fee for the use of this property. The above-named club organization agrees to mark, sign, and maintain the property in a proper and safe manner. The State of New Hampshire Department of Natural Cultural Resources, Division of Parks and Recreation, Bureau of Trails, shall also provide a landowner liability insurance policy with coverage of $2 million for trails within the grant and aid program. And then the agreement of the term shall be, and then you have the option of indefinite, 1 year or 5 year. And if the board agrees, a motion to direct me or authorize me to sign it would be in order. I talked with Eric, is Eric here?
Right behind
Oh,
you.
there you go, Eric Rexford, and the map's kind of small, but if you can see what I'm aware of is requested, and he could clarify a little further, is permission to use the town's land. You can see there's a utility piece of land that runs from Industrial Park Drive up to the Burndy Road, and then across the Burndy Road, and then it runs up and then parallel along his property where the ATV park is. So I don't know if Mr. Rexford wants to clarify anything I've said.
Yeah, I actually have a map of everything for you. There's a dotted line and a slash line that shows you the route.
Yeah. And if I could just add one more thing, if there was a request to travel on town right-of-way, like or a road, for example, on Burndy Road or on Industrial Park Drive, that would require a separate public hearing. There's separate statute that requires a 14-day notice period for that. So.
Can I add something? Just let you know, this has already been done. This isn't new. Back in, Roger may actually be able to help me. I'm thinking early 1990s, Ronnie Lister wanted to donate money to put in trails to get to Bethlehem and all the surrounding towns for all means of recreation, primarily snowmobiling. So he donated $30,000. Within a 3-year time period, we spent about $100,000. And I meant, as far as the state, the Littleton off-road riders, bicycle clubs, you name it. At that time, the road crossing that we're talking about that's down on Verde Road, that was, I stood up in front of the board, it was all approved, everything, it's all on record. This exact same form was signed, and it was for so-called OHRV. Back then, we didn't have ATVs, and I think we had maybe had a 3-wheeler back in the 80s, but, so it was primarily snowmobile, other means of recreation going off the railroad bed. That's just about the time the rail bed was opened up as well. At that time when it crossed, basically you crossed the road where it is now, it went to the right. You can see an existing trail that went up through until Toots built their building up in there, and basically the trail kind of went right through their building. So it got relocated, then Burndy, I think, added on something, and it kind of got relocated again. And then now it's been, for snowmobiling, has been going across the street, taking a left up over the grass berm, up by Burndy, and going over this easement right away by the rail line. This trail's been used for 30 years. It's really not new. And again, the town snowmobile club's been doing it, state's been paying grant and aid, it's been maintained, bridges have been in. So it's really not new. This is just what Eric has done by donating for free, putting in a multi-use trail system up in there. Basically, this is just providing better access to those trails, really what it is, for during, I'll say, warmer months. The snowmobile club, actually, it's going to enhance the snowmobiling as well, because
That was only approved for snowmobiles. That wasn't approved.
it was all OHRV. Back then, we were a snowmobile ATV club.
I guess I'd like to see some of the records
But
pertaining to that.
back then, like I said, we didn't have ATVs, so. But Littleton actually, off-road riders started out as the first ATV club in the state. And then with no one having any, it kind of fizzled out. We took away the. So anyhow, that was the history. I was just letting everybody know that it had been done in the past, so.
Well, thank you, Brian. Yeah.
Do you remember what year was that again?
I would say it was in the early 1990s.
Okay.
I gave up running I ran the club for about 8 years or so. But I tried to go back and see if I could figure out exactly when it was. It's all on record. The state should have it as well as the town, but like I said, I'm guessing 90 to 95 right in there somewhere.
One of the problems that has arose is the no-wheel vehicles as far as the landowners that we cross their land.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the part that's got to be addressed. To even get onto the power line, you can't, you got to go across private land to do it. You got to go across Yesman's property to get to the power line that the town owns. Unless you want to cut guide rail and start coming up somewhere else to cross the Verde Road. There's a lot of hurdles that have to be brought, and once you come onto the other side, to stay on the power line, there's a pond there.
Oh, the trail goes, and I'm not trying to speak on behalf of anybody, I'm saying when we put that in years ago, the trail goes, you can drive a truck around that pond. The trail's all in.
On the industrial park property.
Huh?
On the industrial park property.
It's where you go right off from Burndy Road,
That's the industrial.
right across from there, yeah, there's that fire pond,
Yeah.
that's right in there, yes, yeah, so.
Chief?
Can we let Eric do his presentation, because I think all the questions that are coming up, he can address. He's thoroughly researched this, and I think he has a very comprehensive plan, and he's interested to making this happen, so.
Eric, you're on.
Sure. So we're looking for the crossing, like everybody knows, that's already an existing snowmobile crossing. I have reached out to Mr. Jessman, talked to him after I met with Zach and Doug, because we had an event and we basically opened the trails and a lot of people showed up. So then we kept going, making trails up there. People would come and ride. And before we got off on the wrong foot, we wanted to make sure that we had everything in place, talking with the Snow Machine Club, talking with town officials, to make sure that we were doing it right. So we're talking to the landowners. They have this map, they have a drawing. I'm willing to donate my time to do a very nice looking trail over to the power line, okay? So that when people drive through there, it's well maintained. If I do some stone retaining walls or ledge pack or crushed gravel, whatever everybody wants to look at, so that it is appealing when you drive through there. And then we have talked to Scott Manning and met with Scott Manning, and that was Zach, Doug, myself, and Scott. Met with Clint Savage, who was with the Bureau of Trails many times up there, to design a trail to get up to the trail system that we do. And everybody's been great so far. I'm just waiting to hear back from Mr. Justman and Mr. Manning in the town, if we can do so. Because not only will it make it safer for everybody, if there's just two quick crossings. Right now, you cross Industrial Park Road, then you go to the left, and you drive back towards Burndy Road, right on the edge of the road, and then it veers off past the Industrial Park sign, and then goes across Burndy Road again, back onto Mr. Manning's property, and then you ride the road the rest of the way. So, to me, common sense, if you have two quick crossings across the road, it would be safer. So that's what we're looking for, to get up to the recreational trails that we've put up on the property. And it's pretty neat. I gotta say that it came out way better than I ever thought it would. There's a lot of really cool trails, and my crew has worked diligently for 4 months, to put all this in, and I'm talking 40, 50 hours a week, to bring this to the community, and hopefully everybody's behind us on this, because, we're not trying to ruin anybody's property. We're not trying to. The hardest thing is, if you enjoy this sport, the hardest thing is having a place to ride, okay? And, there's Jericho, there's Pittsburgh. I'm sorry, but I'm a business owner of multiple businesses here in town, and I just don't have the time. I haven't had a day off in 4.5 months, okay? I don't have the time to put my rig on my trailer and trailer up to Pittsburgh or Jericho to ride. It would be so nice if we could just have it here in our community, and it's a group effort. It's not, I've even had people contact me that want to name trails after, like one gentleman, his father passed away this spring, and he wants me to name a trail after his dad. I was like, that's awesome, absolutely. So it's just really cool. And I think if you went up in there and you looked at what we've done, or went on a tour, because we do give tours up through there, you would be amazed at what we've done in a short amount of time. So if you have any other questions for me, fire away.
Okay.
The first thing is, that I got a question on this thing. The land that you're talking about under the power lines, that was procured by and paid for by the Water and Light Department. The town of Littleton, in turn, did not own that land at all. It was owned by New England Power Company. And what they had was a loss of electricity in here, which cost more money. So when Volney Ruggles was on there, they ended up putting up the money to procure the land on it so that they have the right of way to reduce the cost of the electricity. So the water and light department put the money, the town of Littleton didn't do it. Consequently, as a result of that, I think you'll find that if you look, for your signs and stuff like that, power companies in turn have big signs all over the place out of it that says it's private, you can't use it. And I don't know whether you got any permission from them. They got the easements on the thing on it. I don't know whether they were notified as far as that part is concerned at all. The water and light,
I have talked to Tom Considine.
I didn't ask you. I want to know if they were notified in writing. And have they have a vote on the thing on that? That was number one. I am not a believer in the fact of what you've done. That land up there, I have two different things that I have to represent. One is Granite Terraces, which is a development in here. And I also in turn own the green spot down at the bottom on the map up there. That's owned personally as far as that. He approached me about wanting to buy it. The last owner approached me and wanted to buy it. We said no. We still are saying no. I told him that I wouldn't sell it from that part. Because if you did, you'd be coming access through a private development from that part too. So I'm not, and the fact that that land is all zoned residential. It's R2. It's not, the only thing that you've got is maybe a snowmobile trail, but I'm guaranteeing you, you won't have any snowmobile trail there if this goes through. Because I know the Alaccas won't have it, and I won't have it. There will be none from that part is concerned. So you won't have anything if this thing goes through. They shouldn't be messing with it. The town of Littleton in turn has very little land availability for what it is as far as development is concerned. This was put in, and just recently, I think you had the vote on the town to look at the new
Master plan?
master plan pertaining to what it was in here, as far as that goes, and it's still zoned R2. That part. I think you jumped the gun. You put the cart before the horse. You in turn went in, you bought a piece of property, you didn't look at it, you didn't do your homework, you should have done it, you should have put it into a purchase and sales agreement before you ever got in from that part. Going up in that area, that's a residential area, R2. And that's what it is. And they can't go in and doing it without the other meeting tomorrow night. And I think you're gonna find that you'll have a very difficult time getting that part of it through.
Thank you, Bruce. Well,
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna,
Andrew,
I'm sorry, I just had a practical question. Just on the application itself, there's one more section of types of vehicles that permission can be requested for, and that's Jeep and truck. And I just wanted to find out, do you plan on doing, like, opening up to, like, Jeep truck type activity? Or is that something you want to take up at a later date? It's just a box I need to check or not to check on there.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I just take up at a later date.
Yeah, okay.
so we're,
And on the application, it also said that you were gonna go over to the ski tow. How are you getting there?
I'm gonna what?
If you put on the application the fact that you were going over to the ski tow to support that,
Well, I'll give you a little more detail, Bruce, to answer your question.
That's really for the zoning.
I have approached Tony Alacqua multiple times. We've had multiple conversations on his porch. And, you know, working with Tony a little bit, I was hoping that we would be able to eventually, because we would like to do guided tours, sleigh rides from the trail system that we have up through Alacqua's over to the ski area, because I think I've watched the ski area struggle for years, and it's saddening, really. I mean, people put a lot of effort to get that ski area back up and running, and, you know, usually volunteer systems are really tough to run. If you run a company, you know what your budget has to be. You have to stick by your budget, and you have to run it like a tight ship, okay? If you're doing volunteer, A lot of times volunteer stuff works, a lot of times it doesn't, it falls apart. Okay, well, that ski area is a really neat little ski area. And it would be really awesome, I think, if we could do guided sleigh tours from where we are, up over the Alaqua's property, if allowed, okay, all the way to the ski area. And why not throw in a tubing park? So now the children in the area, most families can't afford. Oh, can I just finish speaking, please? So most families can't afford $3,000 or $4,000 to equip their children with ski gear, right? If they're starting out, but they might be able to afford, $5 or $10 a night for their children to go up and maybe ride down some inner tubes down the mountain. You know what I mean? So there's all kinds of things that you could do to actually bring more fun in the wintertime to the town, and we could incorporate this whole thing all the way throughout and have a fun spot for people to go.
But you also approach the Lockwoods after me talking with them about building buildings up in there.
Yeah, go ahead. We
So we're only caught up.
are only supposed to have allotted 15 minutes for this, for the public hearing, and we're already about 5 minutes over. So we'll let you share. Obviously, we have nothing to vote on tonight. There's that meeting tomorrow night, and we could come back to revisit this sooner than later.
Yeah, and also, Madam Chairman, one thing I think that we're kind of, the topic right now is getting expanded into other areas. Really, all that is at question tonight is if you look at.
Just the
that-
public
just
crossover.
Just the public, crossover the town of Littleton
And that's
parcel right
what
there.
I wanted to bring
Yeah.
up is realistically, it's only supposed to be here tonight, it's just the crossing. What someone does on their personal land, what Eric has put in is no different than all the trails throughout the state of New Hampshire that landowners have allowed for free.
Right.
There's no business there.
Is that what you wanted to share? Okay.
One, what Bruce said, you probably should have done a little bit more homework. So if, the first thing you would recognize is that 90 acres of land uses is a conservation easement, and that's controlled by Carol Lot. And she will not have it, and Bruce will not have it. Just letting you know, and I told you that the other day. Sure. So part of the application mentions going to the ski tow.
The zoning application.
Okay.
Right, so
that's
so
gonna be
that's,
discussed tomorrow.
right, exactly, yep.
Just want to make sure you're aware of that. Second, as the chair of the planning board, there's a process, and I would expect that the landowner, before they start all that work and effort, because you have done a beautiful job on those trails. Unfortunately, you put a lot of time, effort, and money. I would expect, we don't have site plan review, I don't mean to say that, but we have two landlords, zoning and planning, and if you follow the process properly, before you started all that work, the conversation would be a little bit different today or tomorrow, because you would have all your ducks lined up. So, I know we have the zoning board meeting tomorrow, landowner will be there, and we have a lot more, I've got more stuff to say, so the process, really need to explore that a little bit deeper, and I do think that you're not gonna solve this issue tonight, in the select board, so.
Can I ask one other question? How do you get permission to drive over the town properties? How do they do that in Gorham and up in Vermont? I know it's a different state.
Exactly what we're doing right
No,
here.
I'm just asking a question here. You giving somebody permission to drive over the public ways in the property? I think it has to be an article on the town. The town has to give the permission to it.
Select board.
Yeah, for
It's all
08,
done all throughout the state.
yeah.
But didn't Gorham have a,
Gorham's issue involved just a parking lot, a ride and park, and there were some people that, needless to say, were just having an issue because they wanted to have an issue. That's been resolved, and actually, nothing's been shut down, they just
No, I-
relocated the trail, and, yeah, so that was their only so-called issue, but.
If the board was not acting under the statutes with the vehicle trail permissions, if they were transferring a permanent easement, then in Littleton, it would go under a different process, probably more similar to RSA.
14A.
Yeah, 4114A. So
What
that would,
is not a permanent easement?
so this, the New Hampshire Chapter 12, Section 34 allows for this process where the select board can approve for OHRVs or snowmobile permissions.
1 year, 3 year, 5 year?
Or indefinite.
Or indefinite, yeah.
And it can be canceled at any point in time.
Yep. Yep. Right.
So, thank you. You know, one of the things that has made Littleton extremely successful are entrepreneurs and creative thinking, such as people like Eric. And I think it's the ready, fire, aim mentality, which it's that entrepreneurial thinking, and we certainly want to be respectful too of the landowners and thinking this through this process, but we also don't want to squelch creativity.
Is this something we can vote on tonight, or is
There's
this?
really nothing to vote on. So we've got, they're going to.
Yeah, you could vote on the trail permissions form, which would authorize crossing property if it was the board's pleasure, but.
I mean, we could even do that contingent upon approval at the zoning board tomorrow night.
Or even approval with Mr. Manning and Mr. Jessman, too.
Does it cross that?
Say something?
No, this,
You gotta remember that the recreational trails that Eric has put in at this point in time are recreational. They have nothing to do with business. So putting in a crossing is no different than all the snowmobile or other crossings. It's just for, I guess you could say, more summertime use. It's been being used by bicycles for
Right.
probably 30 years. But, so yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with business use. So you really gotta make sure that you keep the two separate, because it's really no different than all the other recreational trails. Any landowner can do what they want with their own property at that point. And that's why the state has gone in, already been on, inspected all the trails that Eric has put in. They were, honestly, every trail that he's put in was already there. He just went in and made them nicer, put in culverts, put in bridges. It's not really, and it's just a better place to be than what was there before. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood the difference between the two.
But he put them in with no access.
Do we want to go?
He has no access
Vote
at
on that, or
all.
do you want a little time?
I think I need some time.
Well, I do have an access because
Problem is,
we
it's
can trailer up there.
access to
and,
the
You
power
don't have
line.
the right to go through
You
what
can't
you've
do
done.
it.
Okay, we
Each-
got too much going on here right now, so, Roger?
I just think that we need more information on how they're gonna get to the power line without crossing Mr. Jessman's property, or if he has approval and can give us some written approval to get there. Need a little bit more information on how this is going and where it's going.
Additionally, one other thing is LDIC did reach out to me today. I know they're drafting a letter for tomorrow's meeting with some additional concerns. And I know currently on the present Snowmobile Club, we do go across their property. The current proposal is kind of go across the street and go up the power lines, which would have to go across their property unless we went through a pond. We'd have to relocate the pond or whatever. So that could also potentially be a barrier. I found out today.
So these are all the docks I was talking about. And Bruce may mention too.
So what's your,
What do you guys feel? I mean,
I'll make a motion to table it for now and do more research and come back at a later date.
Can I just make another statement? Down in Woodsville, when we do the guided tours, we take the railroad bed to Woodsville. We get off the trail by Shaw's. We go up the roadway by the elementary school and then past Walmart, headed towards North Haverhill. And then you take a turn and you go up past Cottage Hospital to Briar Hill Road. It's basically around between 2 and 3 miles that they allow people to ride on the road, on the main road, not a secondary road, okay? And then up over Briar Hill Road to come back down by Aldridge's store, okay? And that is allowed. So we're only asking for not even an eighth of a mile, and we're not even asking to ride the road. We're asking I'll donate my time to build the trail, okay, for the clubs, to make it safer for everybody.
we should probably do some research too, what Brian was sharing back. If it's already been approved, then,
It might have been
Maybe.
approved, the Snowmobile Club, Littleton Off-Road Riders is no longer an ATV club. That is not something in our bylaws anymore. We're officially only a Snowmobile Club. So I would assume that would go under the, was it Hammy Music is the ATV club, the local ATV club, that would probably be a part of that.
Okay.
Ask Brian a question too.
And Brian, the permission that would have been back in '95, would they have been under the same
It was
time
identical
frame?
form.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, we literally hit every landowner, I mean, like I said, it was, well, you remember, we had large excavators going for 3 years in multiple directions with ungodly amounts of money. I mean, today it would cost over $1 million to do what we did. So, but.
I mean, really, I mean, even if we were to grant permission today, it still needs permission, I assume the Trail Bureau still needs permission from LIDC, and is there any on Manning's property, or are they
Is
just?
there what?
Any of this going across Manning's property or Bernie property? I see the gentleman here.
When we looked at it, okay, and we all met, we arrived at, because Mr. Manning is gonna be building a big addition on his building, and he's gonna be building a new building across the street. So the whole reason that I came up with this plan, and I sent it to Chris Gamache, and I sent it to Andrew, the whole reason was I was worried about, because I'm an avid snow machine rider as well, okay? I was worried about the snow machine trail, and it goes up Mr. Manning's property, and if he puts a building over there in the parking lot, I'm saying to myself, well, what's that gonna do to our trail system? So then I immediately started researching it, okay, to see what the best route would be to get up there, okay? Because the main corridor goes right across my whole property as well, which I think is great. And we gravelled the whole road from property line to property line. And the reason I gravelled the whole road was so that if we had any emergencies, safety personnel could get in there to help people. And it's right exactly in the center of the property. It's literally a gravel road, so they could zip right in there very quickly to help somebody if somebody got hurt. Okay, so, I mean, we did it right, we did it well, I feel, in most cases. You know, everybody makes a few mistakes along the way. I maybe should have reached out to other people. I was excited to do something really fun, okay? My apologies, and please forgive me, because I'm just trying to bring more fun for people to the town and for locals, and I'm trying to help the clubs as well. I've donated a lot over the years. You know, we've done quite well with our business, and we always give back, okay, to multiple charities throughout, and this is just another way for us to do it.
And I'd just say one more clarification is he's not asking for permission from us to go over Jessamine or anybody else's property. It's specifically
Just those
just.
two quick crossings.
Yeah, it's,
Right.
if you look up here, it's the highlighted piece of property where he would be requesting permission for the trail to go over, it's for the landowner permission.
So there's still, in other words, what I'm trying to say is there's still permissions that are gonna be needed to get anyways before this is reality. But I mean, really, this meeting is just about the town's property and granting the Trail Bureau to use it. With that being the case, I would just make a motion that we approve
And slipped on the trail already on.
a good portion of it.
Probably
Well,
80%
is it
of it is
our
there.
property or is it Water and Lights?
It's our property. Water and Lake can't own
They can't
property.
own property.
So it's,
No, no pond goes right around the pond. You can drive a truck around the pond.
That's LEIC's property.
it's on LIDC's property, which that will need to be worked out as well at a separate meeting with LIDC.
Listen to them.
But-
Get their thoughts.
But we can still approve this tonight and move the process along rather than prolong the process and get the trail built and move now.
This is exactly where we came from. This is what Mr. Rexford has done. You slow down a little bit. Chad, don't go to a vote now. Do what Mr. Roger asked for. Do a continuance, do some research, do some homework, cross your Ts, dot your Is. There's no vote needed tonight.
I'd like to know, how to get to the town property if there's a jumble somewhere else, so we're voting on something that we've got to start here and work a trail this way. If you can come to us and say everything's all set to the property that we want, that's the next step. As far as I'm concerned. And you guys can vote if you want, it's it's up to you.
From just a little bit of perspective, I would think that, if you're gonna wait for every piece of property to have permission for a new trail system to be developed, you would almost need to have a joint meeting with all property owners at the same time, or any one property member could have the same, hesitation.
And if they all say the same thing, then we're all just chasing our tails. If they say we want to wait for the town to say yes before
We've
it's
had
us.
this with snowmobiling for years. You put a trail in and then all of a sudden, 5 years later, someone else says no, and then you're rerouting the trail, and it's, that's how the road crossing. That's the other trail that we put into Bethlehem got closed because of development.
But we always started from where the trail was to where we wanted to go, not in the
Oh,
middle,
yeah,
not in the middle and work your way back
Yeah,
and forth.
absolutely.
We've got a time issue here because Representative Hennessy has another meeting to get to,
All right.
and we do want to hear from her. So what's your fancy?
Well, there's a motion on the table right now to table it.
Okay,
If we get a good review from tomorrow night, then maybe we can come back and revisit it and we'll set, call a special meeting. Get more info. I'm gonna go to the meeting tomorrow night, I wanna know what's going on, just.
And not a bad idea. I will add one last thing, just as an FYI. This isn't Berlin quorum. Our trail system, and it's been, I'll call it weak, the rail trail, it's dead end on both ends. So the amount of people that you have actually using this is very minimal. I have a side-by-side. I usually travel up north. Amy and I will travel down to Woodsville on a Saturday afternoon. We're lucky if we pass 3 people. Other than, Eric may have some tours going on every once in a while. It's not a heavily used, because it's dead end, there's no real destination points, it's not heavily used. And I think it's got a total of maybe a mile and a half of trails, a mile worth of trails up in there. It's not, again, you're not going up to Berlin to Jericho Park where there's 35 miles of trail all in this big huge section, so it's
okay, all right.
minimal.
Thank you, Brian. So we do have a motion to table it. I'm assuming we'd gather more information and wait to see. Do we have a second? No. Okay, I will second it. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and we'll wait to just gather, I think that would, we'll just gather more information and then meet hopefully as quickly as we can. Okay, so. Next on the list is Representative Hennessy, and she's going to give us some gopher updates, legislative updates, and
I'm going to hear So, thank you. The 400-member House of Representatives in New Hampshire is not currently in session. There are a few committees that are still meeting, one of which is the Gopher Committee, which you spoke about earlier. I'm one of the 4 House members on the Legislative Advisory Group to the Gopher's office. So we've been voting on what we think the governor should spend the $1.25 billion in CARES Act funds. And of that $1.25 million, the state of New Hampshire has allocated approximately $1 billion of it into 20 different programs. The municipal and county payments that you already talked about and approved is one of the programs. The largest program is the Main Street Fund, of which they handed out $320 million. And 55 businesses in Littleton received funds from that, totaling $2.7 million. 2 other programs that are going to be very helpful to our businesses here in Littleton are the self-employed program, which people should have already received confirmation of those funds, and also the GAP grants for businesses that didn't fit into any category or maybe had an issue with their application. And those grants have not been publicly announced yet, so at some point we'll find out the benefit to Littleton as a whole for those grants. The next House session will be September 16th, and that'll be veto day. And the governor has currently vetoed just over 20 bills. And in those 20 bills could actually be hundreds of bills, because what we were doing is kind of trying to put 2.5 months of work into a few days of Zoom meetings. So some of the vetoes had to do with that not enough public input was given, which I agree with. It's very difficult to get public input in a Zoom meeting, as the school board here in Littleton found out last week. So if the town is looking for any legislative changes, the period for legislative changes opens up September 8th, and will go on and off for a little bit, depending if it's a House member or a Senate member. And that is my update for you.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions?
Yes.
I heard a rumor you might be running for another
Oh,
office.
yes, and you might not see me here as much if I'm successful in my bid for the Senate District 1
That's
seat.
great. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
That's great. Anything else? Questions, comments? Thank
I'm
you.
also here to hear about the Apple.
Oh,
Oh, good.
Thanks.
okay.
Yeah, that's
Should
right.
we jump, would it be okay, because I know you do have to get going. Do we want to skip ahead and take care of that?
I think there's several people here for it.
Good, well, let's do that then.
And really, there's two items that have to do with that. The Cottage Street one would be the first to deal with the Apthorpe
Okay.
request. So,
Okay. Do you want to go
yes.
over that?
Okay, so under new business, the Cottage Street Railroad Crossing. So it's been suggested that the town pursue the retention of the railroad crossing overhead infrastructure at Cottage Street. In communications with Chief Supervisor of the New Hampshire Trails Bureau, Chris Gamache, and railroad planner from the Aeronautical Rail and Transit at NHDOT, Lou Barker, we've inquired about the possibility for the town to assume control of this infrastructure. The request is based on a desire to utilize the infrastructure for wayfinding signage at this entrance to the community. If the board supports this effort, a coordination process would be engaged to coordinate with the NHDOT Bureau of Trails, the Bureau of Right-of-Way and Traffic at the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, and the New Hampshire Department of Historical and Cultural Resources to potentially bring this under the control and maintenance of the town. So at this point, the town can't actually assume control or ownership of it, but if the board would like to, we can request that it be removed from the scope of work to take it out. So when the contractor comes in to remove the rails, this overhead infrastructure was set to be removed as well. So
Were they gonna be reusing it somewhere? That's because I remember a lot of that, some of it is scrap, but a lot of it they wanted to reuse.
That was the initial plan. Last meeting I was at, they said that they basically weren't reusing any of it. So I don't know about crossing stuff, but all the heavy-duty steel and the ties, I guess, all that again.
really, yeah, there was one gauge of rail in one section of town that they originally said was.
It's like gold.
Yeah, it's like gold. Nobody uses it, or it's not manufactured anymore.
Right, it's
So,
like high-strength steel or something.
yeah, they were gonna,
85-pound right away.
they were gonna put that in
So
in
it's just to
a.
mark the rails to which ones go where.
Right, but I think, like what Brian's saying, for this, it's probably just gonna be scrapped. Is that correct?
I haven't heard they're gonna be reusing them anywhere, so. It
The
wasn't at the last
Water and Light
meeting.
Department has an easement across there too. It was built by Clinton Clough, out of the thing on it, and he had to get the easement, and he had to post a bond out of the thing on it as well, and the Water and Light Department to be able to change the water line to the one. They have a water line easement that goes underneath it, I'll tell you that. So you go, putting that in.
Yep, very good. Yeah, and I can relay that to Chris Gamache. The entire project is being managed by the Bureau of Trails. And so,
They had to post a bond.
okay,
What it amounted to at the time, I think the trail was owned by an outfit down in Massachusetts, was it maybe? That whole,
No, that's up in Northumberland.
no, it was owned by a company down in Massachusetts, the whole right of way down through there.
I think it actually might be out of Conway. They were talking about going back and forth. last I remember.
Well, that's the original one, but as I said, Clark ended up having to post a bond to do it, and he did the whole thing all the way down around the building here and all the way over and underneath there. And he had to get permission from them in writing, and he had to post a bond to be able to go across that thing, to make sure there would be no difficulties if the water line.
We did have an email from Chris Demasha. They are slated to be removed and scrapped. So that's their only use. So if they could be kept, it would be pretty useful to the town, as near as I can say. I mean, they're not going anywhere.
I think it's worth going after. I mean, I don't want to certainly postpone the project any longer than the decade that it's already been. But if it's a simple, quick change that doesn't delay the project, I would be all for it. So I'll make a motion to direct the town manager to pursue this.
I'll second.
Second? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank Erin Hennessy. She's been helping with this project from a legislative standpoint.
Awesome. Thank
getting
you.
influence, so.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So then, as far as the Apthorpe District Commission appointments, we'll do those next then. It looks like we've got a list of, if I can find those, list of names of people that would like to be appointed. Oh, here they are. All right, so these are, when we're calling it something, what is it, the Apthorpe District Commission, but there's another name, I think, that has been kind of tossed around too. Yeah, I don't remember.
I think this is more fitting.
So request for appointments, Herb LaHoop has requested to be on the commission, Alan Paget, I think, yeah, Alan's here. Judy Abbott, Rod has asked to be on. Dave Rochford, I guess Glenn Gardner was asked, but he won't accept the appointment because he's out of town frequently, so he said he would show up when he could, but he wouldn't be a formal commissioner. Erin Talcott, she's her and her husband both teach at the White Mountain School, but they both love Littleton, and she would like to get involved as on the Apthorpe District Commission. And then Matt McBride, Janice Hewitt, and Chief Smith. So discussion, comments.
I'd like to add the town manager, like as an ex officio role
Okay.
to that, I think, and
I think it's nice to have this kind of interest in
yeah.
what we do.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to propose the slate that you read through, as well as Andrew, as an ex officio, as commission members.
Okay. All right.
And I'll second.
A second. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good. Thank you.
So is there any leader or anybody else?
I think they'll choose.
They'll choose?
Yeah, they'll get together and then decide. Good. Thank you. Okay, so back to,
All right.
Andrew, do you want to do the
We'll go back.
EMS year-end review?
Yeah, so
Next on that.
I'll just give a quick update on that. So no one's expected at this meeting for the EMS year one review. So the EMS Commission is meeting on Wednesday, August 12th to review the first year progress, operations, and finance. The commission will present to the board at its first regular meeting in September. There is a draft report that you guys do have a copy of. There will be some changes to that by the time we get to the next meeting, but those we'll have a lot more information for you at the next meeting. The EMS Commission just hasn't had a chance to get together to review.
Yeah, I would particularly be interested more in the finances, how we're doing, to budget, as well as, I think part of this was the 3-year pilot, and to me, a big part of that is the financial aspect of,
Absolutely.
I think quality is certainly, quality is great, response time is great, you know what I mean, that's all very important, but really, I think a lot of that's, industry standards, but we really need to pay attention to the bottom line and make sure that this is a good investment, which everything I hear sounds good, but it's great to see a fiscal report as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that will be part of it. In your draft report on it, there's a mention of the financial condition after the first year. Even with the delays, things look pretty good. So We'll have a full report for you at the next meeting, though.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
not listed on the agenda for the manager's report, but I'll pass this out. This is the year-to-date financials. We have our numbers through the end of July. And so, I don't know if you wanted me to go in great detail, because we did this last meeting too, but for this time of year, we should be at 59.62% of the budget. We are at 52.57%, so we really are still keeping things tight and underneath the budgeted amounts for expenditures. And we're doing that, to make sure that we're sensitive to a lot of the needs that are out there from COVID. So
So it looks like our revenues are under budget as well, 47%.
yeah, and revenues are under as well. Some of the revenues we're able to take a look at and look at the gopher funds for, but not everything in particular.
Do we have any indication yet from the state about rooms and meals tax, how that's going to be affected?
I don't. Yeah,
That shouldn't be affected this year.
yeah,
No,
probably be
Well, it
next
should be
year.
affected next year.
Well, I think part of it will be because the last 3 months of that fiscal year, right?
No, they're on last year's fiscal year out of it, and the money should be coming in about the same thing based on last year's. Next year is when you're gonna get killed, and there's $300,000 at stake in
Yeah.
that. But it should be getting the money to appropriate it in that.
Good.
While you're on rooms and meals tax, can I ask a question?
Sure.
With all the BRB rentals that are out there, that if you pull up at any point in time, the amount that are in Littleton is shocking, because I had never done it. Other communities are passing law, ordinance, whatever it may be, doesn't cost the property owner anything, but they're getting not just rooms and meals, but they're getting like a town tax, all down in Maine, all the way down the East Coast. Every single town has done it. The amount of money that they're bringing in is huge. Costs the town nothing, costs the taxpayer nothing. But it may be something to look into, because these people who are renting out their homes on a daily basis, the ones that are on the lakes and getting $5,000 for a week, they're making more money on a week than half the motels are, small motels are. So,
But that money is paid for at the time with
Yes.
B&B,
yes,
and
it is.
B&B pays for it.
And then they send
tax,
a check.
And it's sent in to the room and meals tax.
That's rooms and meals.
That's right.
The towns are setting up a separate tax.
Yeah, there's what Brian's referring to, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, there was some enabling legislation that allowed towns to collect a extra fee that would go directly to the town. And I think it was $1 to $3, and they may have recently expanded it up to $5 per room per
The reason they did
night.
it because these properties aren't they should be zoned commercial, but they're not. And a lot of them are rented out full-time, but people never even stay there. So that brings in another whole discussion of, what the town wants to go in that. But this isn't going away. And I figured the town ought to get some money out of it, because it's not costing anybody anything. It's these people from Mass, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Let them pay it.
I could bring, there's enabling legislation out there, I could bring that to a future board meeting for when we're looking at warrant articles for you to consider whether or not you want to look at that as something that people to vote on.
The Airbnbs and all that, they get taxed, the room and meals?
Yeah.
Same as every other lodging establishment?
One of the difficult things with a town like Littleton is that our residential population is so small. We're at 6,000, but because of the amount of commercial property and the number of rooms, we don't get an amount of money that, say, like even if there's a town that has very little rooms and meals activity, but they have a high population, they're still getting rooms and meals tax, and they're probably getting part of ours.
It's all about population based, it's not based on
They won't go in the daytime
income.
population, will they?
This tax makes it so you get what's owed to you.
So the town of Lincoln, or the Lincoln Woodstock area, they, and it's based on each lodging establishment, each room, the person who stays there pays, I think it's $2.
Is that the chamber program for marketing?
Yeah, so then that goes right directly to.
But that's
in this case,
voluntary as well by the lodging establishments.
Right, but they seem to do very well with that. I don't, we couldn't probably do it as a town, but.
Kind of sounds like, it's an extra we're taxing one specific business for town revenue, and I think you go down a slippery slope when you start. we're gonna tax this type of business, but we're not gonna tax this type. If they're already paying their rooms and meals, just like a lodging establishment is, an extra tax, I don't know.
Maybe a request the change of the formula of the meals.
I know
and
they've
rooms.
worked on it, I know especially like Hampton and Lincoln and a few others have really pressed the state legislature on that in the past, and it's gone nowhere.
It's all on population.
You're right. So places like
Lincoln is a smaller-
Lincoln has a tiny population, but their rooms and meals that
Berlin,
they,
in turn, has a bigger population, they're getting $500,000 a year and don't have any motels and don't have any place out. They're not generating any money, but they're getting $500,000.
But they have like 300 BRB rentals,
Yeah.
because people rent out their homes.
So anything
Like
else
Franconia
on
gets
here?
about 50 or 60
Andrew, we're kind of getting off.
Yep, so
Yeah.
I'll move on to the next topic on my report. It's New Hampshire Department of Transportation Highway Block Grant Aid. I know Bruce has talked about this quite a bit in the past. So by law, all municipalities in the state having class 4 and 5 mileage are entitled to highway block grant aid. RSA 235-23 stipulates that funding appropriations, highway block grant aid is distributed to municipalities by the state of New Hampshire on a yearly basis with partial disbursements made 4 times a year. 60% of the funds are distributed in the first 2 payments, 30% July and October, and the other 40% in the final 2 payments, 20% in January and April. The funds can be used for construction, reconstruction, and maintenance of each municipality's class 4 and 5 highways. It can therefore be used to be part of a match for a project in a bridge aid program, as an example. It also can be used towards equipment to maintain local roads. The intent here is that it's be used for the local roads, for an example, not used on any other non-highway maintenance issues. Like you couldn't fix the library with it, for example. Littleton's total for July to April 2021 is $173,660.64.
this is just an announcement of it. I mean, we already budget for it, and
Yep.
not really doing anything in particular. It's just an announcement that it came in, or
Yep,
that's what
they've announced what we have coming to Littleton, so. And that'll be included in the revenues on the MS 434, I believe, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, and then part of the tax rate calculations.
You could buy, they wanted to buy a truck last year, they could take a portion of this amount of money and buy equipment. For snow plowing, or taking it, or maintaining any of those. And almost every road in the town of Littleton is a class 5.
this in Littleton, we just have it go to the general fund.
Because our expenditures for road maintenance well exceed this, it's just included as a general revenue to offset the highway budget as part of the tax rate calculation, so.
So are there any updates too, Andrew, speaking of roads, on the Foster Hill Road?
What was going for that?
I mean, Fire Hill.
Oh, Far
Far
Hill.
Hill.
Oh, yeah,
Far Hill.
yep. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not on here, but why don't I let Doug just talk a little bit about, we've released, Doug developed an RFP process for Far Hill, South Street, and Partridge Lake Road.
Yeah,
And
we had very successful bids from 3 contractors, very competitive, actually substantially lower pricing than last year. We're very pleased.
we had estimated that these 3 projects were gonna cost,
Around $500,000, around the warrant article
Yeah.
budget. And the low price from Central Paving came in at $273,000.
so Doug right now is taking a look at the savings, and there's other projects that have been, on the road plan, and so we're looking at getting some additional work done under the article. So there's some roads that are.
So that's not just paving over a broke-up road.
Depends on the section.
Depends on the condition.
Yeah.
We'll
So,
try to reclaim it if it's needing reclaiming,
right.
if it's broken it down.
Was the warrant article written for other roads as needed, or just?
We didn't
didn't
name
specify.
them. No, we didn't name them, just as needed.
Yep.
Yeah,
So it's exciting news.
yeah, that's good.
Good
Thank you.
prices.
Add something, just to throw in a comment. I've been working with Liberty Mutual on bonds for contractors, and I've been talking with underwriters there, and they've, in the last year, had an overabundance of non-qualified contractors where the bonds have ended up being called in. So prior to deciding on anybody, it's really worth getting references, talk, see the work that they've done. I won't name the businesses, but there's businesses that have gone out, other industries, and just because someone can operate a piece of equipment, they think they can automatically know how to go and build roads. And building roads, oh, Eric, it's an art.
thank you for that, Brian, and thank you for the update. Doug. Appreciate
Listen,
it.
if you guys, if you're just paving, I'd take some of that extra money and grind the roads, because it'll pay for itself. If you grind the asphalt first, especially if it's this thick, you grind it, it makes that better layer, then pave that, spend your extra money there.
I agree.
If you pave over the cracks, they'll be back in a year, less than a year.
They did that on Birchcroft, and it made a huge difference, better than it's been in 20
So
years.
maybe you got low bids, grind them. That's just my input.
That's why I was
I'm not
asking if they're just
contractor.
patching over, but.
Yeah.
Some are grinds or some are overlays.
Well, thank you. Next,
Next up, we have the school street speed limit. The town's traffic safety committee, Chief Smith, Doug Danko, myself. So the traffic safety committee is currently reviewing Partridge Lake Road signage, consistency and speed limits there, Porter Street loading zone improvements, Thayers Lane short-term parking, crosswalk improvements at the intersection of Maple and Oak, and School Street speed limit, and among other considerations. The committee is recommending a reduction in the speed limit on Upper School Street to 25 miles per hour. I guess you can barely see the green line on the screen, but it's from Oak Hill Avenue up to the top of School Street. So the speed limit is currently 30 miles per hour and was established when the road was essentially a dead-end, low-traffic road. Since the development at the end of the road as an entrance to the Parker Hill mountain biking trail system, a pump track also has been created, and there's a new recreation parking area. That's resulted in an increase in traffic. So residents have requested a reduction in the speed limit. And so we've reviewed it, and it seems like it makes quite a bit of sense to do so.
Is 25 enough of a reduction?
We talked about that. Actually, I'll let Chief Smith. The question is 25 miles per hour a low enough reduction for the Upper School Street from Oak Hill Ave up to the end where the water tower is?
I think it is. I mean, we can start with 25. It doesn't seem to have an impact, and we can always go lower. It's just that that speed's consistent with other speeds that we've lowered in other neighborhoods that are fairly close to this one. So that's pretty much the standard reduction is 25. If we need to go further, we'll go further, but I'm sure that the residents here will appreciate it.
open it up for public comment too.
I actually brought this up, I'm going to say, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, when I was on Parks and Rec. And actually, my request was that, honestly, all residential, everything. We have so many, we're pushing recreational. We're pushing the children to be walking to school. We're pushing, and it's just, even back then, I said, look, the speed limit just needs to be 25 miles an hour, flat out. There's no confusion that way. All residential areas slows people down. And I mean, I've lived all over town, and it's very, I'll say, speeds are very high. You know, worse is coming off from Mans Hill. Cars come down off from that at 50, 60 miles an hour. And they don't even care about the stop sign halfway down, so.
Right. Well, do you
We
want
need to make a motion?
We do.
I make a motion that we adjust the speed limit to 25 miles an hour.
Seconded.
So Upper School Street, it starts where the high school is and then goes up?
We'll go after.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And thank you for your hard work on that too.
Andrew, can I make a request?
Yeah.
For your traffic committee, I just think as we've been having more and more, outdoor recreation, people seem to be walking more, they're on the streets more. Dells Road, I don't know if it might be, now might be the time to start looking at maybe a sidewalk, say from Meadow Street to the Dells. I mean, I was on that today, and there was a mother with a double stroller and a 5-year-old walking behind her, and she was pretty much right on the white line because there was nowhere else. And it just kind of makes...
Look at Highland Ave too.
Yeah.
A lot of foot traffic on Highland Ave.
There's a lot of young families.
Yeah, if we could maybe look at some,
We've got all them ballparks down there.
and there's no real safe way for the kids to get to them. So there's the rail trail.
You can get money through Safeway to school.
Right.
And pay for a biggest percentage of it. So if you get that,
80%.
and 80% of your money,
Up to $1
you
million.
just look at it and said they're gonna go to schools out of the thing, that kind of deal.
what I was just,
Yeah.
it was so, I won't say disturbing, but just really caught my attention today for whatever reason. And, you know, especially because, I mean, actually, as, you know, having a young family, we've been using the Dells, you know, walking, and we did some fishing, and I'm just starting to see more and more people walk on the Dells Road, and that's another one of those roads that people don't realize how fast they're going on that at all. And,
Absolutely.
you know, if we're gonna be having a lot of kids and young families, I think
All
we
the
need to.
bypass, well, especially with the interstate
Yeah.
grant blocked off now.
But
Usually
I just think it'd be good to have some safe travel, if possible. I mean, it's,
That
Yeah.
road is very, very wide. It's like 60, 70 feet wide.
Hmm.
Down through the.
in certain areas, yeah.
Well, it is. The whole thing is pretty wide.
So,
Yep, we'll take that
Mind
up.
putting that on, just have the committee kind of do their due diligence and.
Chief?
Chad, and just a response to your comment, from my perspective, I'd like to see sidewalks everywhere if the road width, if we can do that. Safe routes is a great avenue to go, but it's typically very slow in their funding process, and then
Very slow.
Engineering is
there's some
ridiculous.
federal stuff attached to that, so that's even tougher, but, and then there's the maintenance piece, but if the community can afford putting sidewalks in, I'm an advocate for putting them on any street and connect them, because we do have a lot of people that walk, and it's a great idea.
Can I throw one on? It's a real easy one that keeps getting buried. And the underpasses on Mount Eustis, there's sidewalks there. There's about 12 inches of dirt built up from snow plowing over the years. And the last time I think we scraped it off was probably, I'm going to say 15 years ago.
That's federal.
Whether it's federal or town, it just needs to be addressed. And the state's probably not doing it because they don't want to maintain the sidewalks. But it needs to be addressed one way or the other, because there's actually a lot of people who walk from up in that area, and they're all going down, they're all on the road, so.
And if I could just add, that was originally that,
Connecting to that and also over Bronson in the Mount Eustis Road to Cottage Street, and the connection over to South was included in,
and what else was it?
Tap.
Oh, yeah, and the original,
TAP project. The budget got so large that we ended up having to pare it down. So right now we have the active TAP,
which is the Safe Routes, the old Safe Routes School program.
is Cottage Street and Mill Street only, and that's $1 million.
They make you spend so much
Well, this
money on
is
engineering.
on there. This
Oh, it's
just
already
needs to
there?
have the dirt just scraped off it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
How far does it go to, do you know?
It basically goes up underneath both
Okay.
underpasses. They used to be, if I remember correctly, I think there used to be a sidewalk going up, and I don't know if they pulled it out and they paved or something years ago.
Okay.
Good,
We'll take a
thank
look
you,
at that.
Brian. Okay, next, under the agenda here. Here we
Oh,
go.
we have,
Yeah, we are.
oh, well, I have, let's see here.
It's the Littleton Area Chamber.
Okay, so the Littleton Area Chamber of Commerce initially had requested of some use of potential space here for office. They've withdrawn that request and just asked maybe that it be reserved for potential future consideration, but they didn't need us to consider that at this time, so.
In regard to that too, I know the taxpayers had approved 14,100 for events, flowers, pianos, and of course the flowers and watering. Where are we at with that?
That was all paid over to them. They requested the money, I believe it was in April, and it's all been paid over to them,
The full 14.
yes.
It's all gone.
Yeah, just the similar, when the voters approve a request for charitable, we require that they submit a request to us. Once they do, we release it per the
It's
requirements
just,
of DRA.
my concern is, I mean, it's no secret that they're financially in really rough straits. We still have, there were no pianos put out. There are no events going on. So I'm just, as a select board, I think we have a responsibility and a fiduciary responsibility to let the taxpayers know. Can we get an accounting for what that money, I know they did pay for the flowers because they were put up. And I know that somebody's been getting paid for watering, but
I haven't
it's,
seen the water truck for a while.
right. So I'm just concerned, the taxpayers, specifically approve the money for those aspects. And
I mean, I can understand not doing the pianos this year because you have, with the COVID and everything like that, but, yeah, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they've kind of asked us to kind of skip over this for the time being. They're looking at some different avenues.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would certainly want a lot more information about what their future plans are, if any, before making any type of decision to let them use that room for free.
But accountability for the money that they've already received.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. We'll
because
continue
it used
look.
to be in the past when, well, at least when I was on the board, we would just submit an invoice, and then we weren't given all the money at once. It was just, we gave the invoice, and then, Karen, I believe it was you that gave the chamber a check to pay for it, for the reimbursement.
They have been submitting an invoice right from the chamber for this. At first, they wanted us to open up an account for them under the town's name. I'm not sure why, but we refused to do that, so we held off on that, and then they requested the full amount.
Well, I guess we would treat it the same way as we would another nonprofit, right? Yeah.
Well, this was just like I think they were looking for like a 3-month lease or something, or
Yeah.
use of it for free. But I think there's just too many unanswered questions, and I think Sue had some good point, I don't know if it was Sue or someone else, had some points about, the Wi-Fi, the electric, the, different, issues that would probably still need to be resolved. But, yeah, I think we might as well just skip over it for now, because it doesn't look like
Mute
it's...
point.
Yep.
Okay, so on to old business.
Okay. So the select board enacted temporary alterations to Mill Street earlier this year. I'll bring it over there. Including a designation of pedestrian way using mountable curb, speed bumps, roadway painting, and short-term parking. The board indicated after 1 month of full implementation, it would review these measures. We at the Office in Public Works have observed improvements in reduction in complaints. Observation of pedestrian way demonstrated that while some pedestrians walk in the vehicle travel lane, a lot do, an increasing number of pedestrians are utilizing the mounted curbing area for the protected path. And while some have abused the short-term parking stalls, there are being increasingly utilized for deliveries and abutting business support. A dramatic decrease in complaints in this area has been realized. But right now, so the board, it's been 1 month since full implementation, and Doug may or may not have some stuff to add, I'm not sure. But so if the board finds that the temporary improvements are unsatisfactory, you could consider, making motions to alter some or all of the changes. Or if you're in favor of it, the changes could remain in effect until the permanent solution, with keeping in mind that during the winter months, we will have to remove things like anything that's
Speed
raised,
bumps.
speed bumps or raised curbing, so.
I've checked in with a few people, and it seems like the blocked road issue has kind of subdued. I know that there's a lot of, perhaps some illegal parking going on, but it still hasn't necessarily blocked people from using it. People are going over the little bumps, if there is some sort of issue, but that's kind of why we put them there, is to, so there wasn't some hard surface that would cause something to be blocked. But I know, Rajiv, you're right down there.
I'm in the Eagle's Nest right there. And I've seen a lot of problems, but Paul and I were talking about it. What's the solution, right? It's just...
Even on when, Reddington Street sidewalks were brand new, or, the phase 2 of Main Street sidewalks, people are still walking in the road there. So I don't know if that's a habit that you're ever really gonna...
Part of it's the parking problem. I guess you'd like to take a 2-week time and find out how much money that the meters have generated, because I walk by them at lunchtime. I go by them I don't see any money in the meters, I see them all reading zero. I can see what people go to the brewery and come back without putting any money in the meter. I don't know if they're generating any money or not. I mean, everyone has its own system that you can punch a button, right, and find out how much money's coming.
So I will get you I don't know when those meters were put in, but I can get you a readout on the meters. But it'll take at least a week because our parking, but there'll be at least a week delay. And, you know, and I don't believe the intent of the meters, correct me if I'm wrong, is for revenue as much as it is for regulation and enforcement.
And I think one of the biggest benefits probably than anything is the fact that we delineated parking spaces so people know this is the parking area, you know, it's not 2/3 of the way out in the road where it used to be, where people just park anywhere willy-nilly.
The few times I've been down, two people have been parked in the parking spot, and it's been an out-of-stater that's been the third car back with four ways on. Yeah.
That's cool.
Once they start parking there, they just, you know, you see one on each side of the two that are parked in the normal places. I don't know what the answer is, it's just, I mean, Paul was down there when the delivery truck was trying to back in. That guy did a pretty good job of getting it off the road, but the next guy, when you made a loop around, was unloading in the street.
So when the deliveries were made, I was actually down there on a complaint, citizen complaint. I was actually one of the business owners that was in the parking spaces long-term. And there were also a new driver showed up, and he never delivered there. And then it was problematic. I can't tell you the whole time I was there, they had, for deliveries, they had an individual that was there trying to direct these people in. I don't know, it might have been just because I showed up. And after I left, they took off, but it seems like there was an effort to get them in the right spot so vehicles could get around them safely. And that's what I've observed. I know the speed bumps have really helped with reduction of speed through there because there is a high volume of pedestrians. Again, you know, something's better than nothing until we can figure out a better plan, right?
So should we just, I don't think there's anything to vote on, but should we just
I don't know,
continue?
I don't know if Chief or Andrew has any, or Doug has any suggestions, or, you know, from what you've witnessed so far, any thoughts of what you might want to do or change, or, I mean, from our standpoint, I don't know if we have any suggestions of changes, but if you who are kind of, you know,
I'd say
that's your...
I mean, from what I've seen, I spent some time, you know, trying to make sure I walk that as often as possible, and also visit the businesses that are nearby there. I would say probably just and there's some situations in play that we can't do this yet, but we will be, is increased enforcement. And I think that's would be something I would suggest. But
Ryan, you had a question?
You had just mentioned deliveries, and I'm bringing back, we always have the warrant articles that have been, things that we passed in the, and I can't remember when it was quite a while ago, but I remember, this was over 10 years ago, all deliveries had to be like early morning, late evening, whatever it was. They were not allowed to be on our main street, or especially down back, and that's where it really came from before we did all this construction. There's something on the books saying when the deliveries
There's
came.
nothing in the ordinance, however, we have a very proactive merchant on Main Street that got most of the deliveries there before 9 AM. That's a great suggestion, and we tried implementing that on Mill Street, but it's beyond my control. It's either a regulatory act or voluntary. Main Street, if you recall, there was a lot of double parking, a lot of collisions because of double parking. So some business leaders took some ownership of the problem, and they got their deliveries before 9 AM. The vast majority of them before 9 AM. I think that was a great way to go with that. That helped us out. The only other option that we have, other than the voluntary option, is through ordinance. You know, you could mandate delivery locations. I mean, we've talked about different options, and then trucking it from that location to down there to prevent the blockage of the street from delivery vehicles. That's an action you guys are gonna have to take though.
And somebody
Brian's
told me,
correct.
like,
Those are good options.
there used to, I don't know if Bruce had told me of that in the history, but there used to be something like yellow freight or something like that, where it was like an actual service where deliveries would come into a warehouse and then smaller trucks would go out or be picked up. So,
Up in Portland last year, I saw UPS parking. So it was specified for UPS parking truck, and it was a certain time, so they didn't have it all the time vacant. It was like the truck was gonna be there for 2 hours while they were parked out delivering.
So, we'll just keep doing
Yeah,
what we're
keep-
doing and just wait,
you know,
and if we have
Keep our ears
ideas,
open for input and ideas
Yep.
and
act
then
on if we,
potential increased enforcement, although it's not for the money, but it's more to keep the traffic
keep it
Just
flowing.
go.
going, and, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see things down there that randomly, like a person leave a certain business and take a left and drive, the wrong way
Mhm.
up Mill and turn down to the, into
3
the,
times a day.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So you can't get all of that, but just if we have a better presence down there, we'll probably be able to get some.
yeah, and then some of that's just people not knowing the area. I mean, no different than, we have Rotary at Topic of the Town in their, the newer section, if you will. And it doesn't matter what you put up for a sign, what you do for a private event, this or that. I mean, I was at a celebration of life last week, big sign out, people don't, you know what I mean? They just go and they act and they pull on doors, and I think it's a lot of the same
Same
thing.
thing,
People just,
One of the,
I know I want to go towards, Hampton Inn, so I'm not gonna take a right, even though it's, the way
is
to
there
go.
a stencil that can go on the road that says pedestrians with an arrow pointed over behind those barriers, just to try to get more people aware not to walk in the road?
Pointing to the pedestrian area?
Yeah.
Yeah, just pointed
We-
towards the
we-
sidewalk or the
Yeah.
potential sidewalk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Put it up in Spanish, that's transito,
Yeah.
one
Okay.
way.
yeah.
Let's put it in
But,
people.
Yeah.
just something to get them off the street, because they're wandering the street with their kids.
Mhm.
You hear somebody laboring on the horn, you look down there, there's people scattering. It's just, I don't know if they don't know enough to get over on that side or not, but it may be a help, the only thing I could think of to help get them into that area.
so we
Other than
will
that,
just keep,
Yeah.
Let's
just keep,
table this, right?
yeah,
Just
table
look at
it
it
and just
again in a
keep
month?
watching,
Yeah,
yeah.
just kind of
Okay.
Can we do
keep
that
keep
1 month?
listening.
1 month, yeah, we'll look at it at the first meeting in September, 14th.
September.
Need a motion?
So,
I don't think
I don't
so.
think we
I
just-
don't think we have to vote, we'll just keep it as is for now. Okay, so next is under new business, make sure, Andrew, did you finish up with yours?
yep.
All right,
Make
so
sure
there's
if we
a,
skip anything in the beginning, I think we're good. Yep.
so we've got the bid opening for, is it 34 Grove? 34 Grove Street.
Yep.
Map lot number 8554, and it's the tax deeded parcel was advertised, bid opening at this meeting, open bids and consider making a motion that the Board of Selectmen award the bid to the highest offer.
Do we know what the outstanding taxes are?
Taxes were on that.
But yeah, both of you just asked the same question at the same
Yeah.
time. Amy's given us that before, 3,900. Again, though, if the bid comes in higher than that, there's other things that we can add to that. We've had to secure the building and hours and
Quite
research and legal, so.
Maintenance, removal of property, yeah.
Yes, yep.
So,
How many bids did we get?
just one.
Just one bid?
We do have the right, even though it says it goes to the highest bidder, we have the right to reject any and all bids too.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it does leave that option open if we don't feel. So it says Town of Littleton, of course regarding 34 Grove Street land and building, Board of Selectmen, with regard to the land and building at 34 Grove Street, map 85, lot 54, I would like to submit a bid of $3,500, which represents the market value of the lot measuring .05 acres. Thank you for your consideration, Kevin M. O'Brien.
It's not even what they're sort of taxes.
It's
If you, I mean, it's,
raised up 1935, but Amy calculates other costs, lawyer fees,
don't know if we put into the amount we took to secure the property, as far as like plywooding up things and that sort of thing, but, I mean, it's up to you.
There is,
If you
I
wanted
mean, there's
to.
a building on that, I don't know
There
if
is.
it's worth rehabbing or.
Gutted or something, they said.
It's been gutted,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a little house.
To me, it looked like it, because I looked at it, whenever we get a property, I'll go check it out. It looks like somebody bought it with the intention of renovating it. They took it down to the studs. I don't remember if electrical was updated. There's some appliances in there, but it basically looked like it was ready for electrical, plumbing, insulation, drywall. You know, the windows look like they're all newer polyvinyl. You know, I ran a quick ROI on if it was, it looked like, you know, a property that if you put, if you tried to, it could potentially be renovated, that's all. I mean, it looked like it could actually be a flip property.
The downside to it, as you're looking at the house, the land, which looks like it goes to it, actually belongs to Kevin O'Brien.
Yeah.
So it's only just that
It's the house,
straight on.
it's the house and the area to park in front of it, and that's
Mhm,
it.
That's it, that's it.
Make a nice Airbnb.
So what's your pleasure?
As there was one bid, are we able to negotiate for, cover all expenses, or is that something that would have to go out to bid again, a minimum and all that type of stuff?
I think that because we advertise it as a bid process, you probably want to reject the bid, but then there's nothing to say we couldn't market the property in a different way. We would just have to do it in a fair way. Like, for example, we could even engage the services of a realtor to work on it, but.
I'd sell.
Yeah, on the other hand, it's nice to get it on the tax rolls.
Get rid of it.
He will be tearing down the house.
Be careful.
Yeah.
Because it's more valuable to him
As a
as a,
secondary,
right,
Right.
than it is
I'm
an
fine
investor.
either way.
Not
He
doing-
has no, he has no fee for a driveway application.
More valuable to him for 3,500.
Yeah.
I'd buy it at 10 easy, but I can't, I probably shouldn't, yeah.
For a couple $100, you know what I mean? It gets it back to the tax rolls that much quicker. So, what do you guys think?
It's our only bid, and it's our chance to get out from underneath it.
One less property to maintain.
So I will entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to sell 34 Grove Street, map 85, lot 54, to Kevin M. O'Brien / Cottage Park Professional Center, because I'm not quite sure which is buying that, in the amount of $3,500.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good, thank you.
Maybe cost incurred in tearing that down.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I'd say it's probably be anywhere from 7,000 to 13,000 probably to take that down from an independent demolition, I would think.
Yeah. Okay, so that's done. We took care of the Cottage Street Railroad Crossing, map 4. So just the last thing is the floodplain administrator appointments?
So zoning officer Milton Bratz isn't here. Public Works Director Doug Damko is. Interim Fire Chief isn't able to make it here tonight. So Article, let's see, that would be 16 of Littleton zoning ordinance regulates the floodplain and requires a floodplain administration or administrator. An official appointment of the position to oversee the administration of Littleton's floodplain is needed. Milton really was reviewing this, and rather than have one position in charge of the floodplain administration, he was suggesting that in the absence of having a full, planning review process that, some towns do if they have site plan review, that he recommended that it be provided to 3 positions, and those positions would be fire chief, zoning officer, and public works director. So if you're in favor of that, consider making a motion that the 3 of those positions be the floodplain administration, be appointed as such.
Can open up to discussion, even public comment?
Did our wetlands, where,
I don't go back years ago, but I thought they were involved with something to do with, not FEMA, but,
That's turned into the Conservation Commission.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know if they, I mean, it's kind of what they're involved with. If anybody's, they know, I know, like Tony Alt knows more about it than most people in town, and he knows all
Yeah.
the regulations.
Yeah, I think the floodplain administration is fairly technical, and it's embedded in the zoning ordinance, and really, you know, having a group like that is definitely good to have them involved, and I think that when there's issues within a wetland or the area, it's good to have their input. Yeah, but then having them analyze the statute and provide information back to, say, an applicant for a zoning permit, it probably would be more, you know, efficient to have staff be able to take a quick look at it and get information
It's
back.
definitely something you want to have done and done right, because FEMA has completely gutted out everything. We see it on the insurance end. It has all changed, and they are cracking down. Basically, they do not want anything built in floodplain, period, plain and
Sure.
simple.
Right.
Sure.
So,
I make a motion that we put the three of them on the floodplain board.
Okay,
Administration.
administration, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And that is, Andrew, that's your,
And that's what I have.
all right, and we've got the 2021 petitioned warrant articles, the impact of COVID-19.
The petition warrant articles.
Impact of COVID-19.
Yeah, I received 3 requests from social service agencies asking if we are still going to require petition warrant articles, especially with COVID-19, making them go out in the public and
yes.
scouring signatures. Some of them are uncomfortable letting their people go out and exposing themselves that way.
I would say, I would add one piece of this, and it's more, probably less COVID-19 and more efficiency. One of the complaints that we get quite a bit, especially from the Budget Committee and members of the public, is the length of our warrant. The way that New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration works is, and it may have been a change, I don't know how many years ago, but there was a change where you can no longer group together petition warrant articles. And so, how many did we have last year?
54.
So we had 54 articles, and of ththose, how many were petitioned? Seal, do you remember, or Karen?
I want to say 10 or 12. It was
13, 14?
Say 14.
So, yeah, if the board was decided not to have them petition, but to have those who have already been approved multi-years in a row, at their request, be added onto one warrant, or you could have one warrant article instead of the 13 or 14, that article could still be amended on the floor at the deliberative session to allow, let's say there was a entity that was up and you know, you wanted to reduce or add more money, the motion would be divisible so that you could actually pull them off and add money or take them out. So that's something for consideration as we're getting ready for town meeting. But we would need to know with enough time to notify these social services of a different process.
I guess I would be all right with it under the condition that it's been approved by the voters at least 1 year, and the dollar amount has not risen. So say I wouldn't want someone to, you know, we got approved last year for 500, and then next year it's this year it's 5,000. If that was the case, I'd want them to go the traditional petition route. But some of these entities that are on there every year, Northern Human Services or whoever else, every year it's the same amount. It's overwhelming majority of the senior center, for instance. I wouldn't have a problem necessarily doing that if that's something that they were comfortable with, because at the end of the day, anyone at deliberative session can get up and amend a warrant article.
And we require, is it 25 voter signatures, minimum? Okay. Registered voters, and what they're concerned about is the being out in
Going
public.
to person to person to person to.
When I was on Parks and Rec, honestly, we never had, very rarely, everybody signed on the same. A lot of times, we emailed them out to people and said, sign this and send it back to us. You know, if it was their original signature, we didn't have to deal with that, so there are other options.
Okay. So is there anything we really, should we vote on it if that's what we decide to do? So this would be more us voting versus the budget committee.
Right, we can wait.
I would like to get their input.
Present it to the budget committee
Yeah.
the other problem we run into is we'll get a petition with 30 signatures, and there's only 15 or 20 actual registered voters.
Okay.
And you've got to send it back to them, they have to go back out.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, if they
If you
really,
send it back, you should deny it. That's
We
what you do.
can't. I mean, we can, if it's at.
If they don't do it correctly, you deny it. That's what you do. You don't
so,
send it back.
so
to
I
the
think
council
what,
correctly.
I think what we'll do is just, we'll wait to hear from the budget committee, and then go from there. Is that, you okay?
When are we meeting with the budget committee?
So we have a meeting, I think, is it,
27.
yeah, 27th of this month,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, then we can find out and then to
Yep.
go from,
We'll write something up on it.
Do we want to talk beforehand, or maybe it's part of the budget committee, but setting a goal for the budget committee is, for the budget figure? Is now the time to do that, or should we wait for the budget committee to meet?
let them meet first. I mean, that's how I would feel about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to kind of get their initial input. I mean, we've been meeting with the school and the town to kind of do pre-budget type stuff, kind of getting a feel for,
I gotta get a feel for that. That's
Yeah.
new to me, so it's-
I got 2 or 3 things that we can get to police.
so we don't have boards of assessors, there is none. Other business? I think one of the things that we do want to, in order to be a transparent board, we did get back our 2018 audit documents. And I know I personally haven't had a chance to really deep dive into it, but just the initial findings from the audit committee, it said that they, or the audit organization said that we were missing several documents for documentation, and the biggest thing was there were a lot of credit card charges that they could not, that they could not collaborate. So we, that's the 2018, we received that, 2 weeks ago? 2018. 2019, I'm assuming has been ordered, but that, and this is to be completely transparent with the taxpayers. I think that's very important. So if we research that, find out what happened, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll keep a closer eye on the 2019 audit.
Any expectation on when we're gonna receive that one?
Or 2019, I think they're just gathering the information now.
Yes,
Yeah.
gathering, I've already submitted some information to them,
Yeah.
but over the course of the next 2 months, I'll continue to submit, because they're not coming out like they used to. I have to upload all the documents to them, so it is a little different than the past.
Karen's giving her notice. You should be hiring an auditor. When you deal with money and dealing with it, one, for her protection, but she should be audited completely on behalf of the town. And that should be a separate, complete audit by the time she gets out of here. So I'm putting you on notice that says you make sure you get it done. Because that's a money issue, and you're talking millions of dollars that flow through here out of it, and you do that. Anytime you have somebody that gets done like that, you automatically hire somebody to do an audit. And it actually comes out, that if she feels comfortable, it's for her protection pertaining to it. But you do an audit pertaining to it.
Yeah.
And you should put that in your,
That is, thank you, Bruce, that is the wise thing to do. We appreciate
One
that.
reason why I got my notice and gave it for December 31st, 2020, is because you're not having to hire a second audit halfway through the year. You're gonna have year end, and you'll have auditors come in just like you always do, because I feel that it's important to have that audit, and the auditors would recommend that.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
I've
And
got another couple of other things to get to.
so we're okay on that. So we are okay.
Public comment?
That's what we're waiting for Bruce on.
I got it.
Yeah. All right, Bruce, you're off.
The first thing is, the town is a business. And the way you're running the town operation up here is terrible. You're in turn working 4.5 days a week. You don't come in and you have everybody taking a half an hour off at lunch together so they can go out together. No business does that. He doesn't do it with his bank. Nobody does it. And you should be operating the thing as a business, and you should be open 5 days a week, and you should be open through the lunch hour, period. That's an important thing to operate when you're running a town of this size. People who come here with second homes, who want to do something, and they can't get there on a Friday, it's not good business practices, period. And I contribute that to the management of what you're doing in here. I know it's been going on all the time, but I don't think it's a correct thing to be doing. Sorry, that you're running a business.
I'll disagree with you on that, Bruce. And it's because it's really, there's two things. On the town clerk's side, I would absolutely...
That hasn't got anything to do with it.
Well, it does, because
No,
the town clerk...
is completely separate.
No, because the town clerk could certainly do that.
Yep.
Because all three employees, they work on the same
They can't,
stuff.
the town clerk is in charge of that.
Right, however, on the town side, you know, you have welfare, you have planning and zoning, you have assessing, you have all kinds of different stuff. And if it was open throughout, how is someone, you know, gonna handle planning and zoning throughout the day? When, you know, SEAL can't be there to cover for planning and zoning, they need to have they do need to have their half-hour lunch. So by doing it at one select time,
It's just managing it.
I mean, it's but it's not like a
You
bank.
run a bank over here and you don't do that.
No, but any one of us,
You know,
any one of the
Chad-
tellers can operate,
This isn't.
you know, and do teller
But
stuff.
anybody
This
can
isn't
run the
the
thing the
time.
same way if you
This-
can run it right.
Yeah, I think the
Bruce, we
original
appreciate
plan was
the
a
suggestion, but
budget
this probably isn't maybe the time or place to.
Why isn't it?
Well, because it's been set in, I mean, you've shared,
Yeah.
you shared your ideas, and we could take it under advisement.
Yeah.
But probably now spending the time on that.
And then now my next question. You got all the people back to work, some of them were working from home. You call into your office now, and they turn around and say, we'll call you back. You don't pick up the telephone. You don't, nobody else does in that establishment down there. And it says it right in the telephone thing. Pick up the phone and take care of the public out of it as far as that part is concerned. You in turn should not be doing what you're doing when you leave a message for somebody. People aren't staying around waiting for telephone calls to come in and sitting outside a telephone. Run it like a business and answer your telephone. Period.
Okay, again, and thank you for sharing that.
Okay, now I got my next one. I want to know about this hiring of the fire department out of Plymouth, too. You've got two people that you people are putting on at the fire department. I got a bunch of questions pertaining to that situation. When you put those on, are you changing the code classification? Brian will know what I'm talking about. This is a Class C town. Concord, New Hampshire is a Class B town. When you in turn put people on, you need to be looking at it to be able to save money on behalf of the consumer. And you haven't checked that out at all.
Are you talking about ISO,
Yes.
the insurance
And that, in
rating?
turn, is what you do when you, in turn, make changes out of it. It's not being done properly out of it by adding people to that job out of the thing. Adding employees is an astronomical thing out of it and a terrible expense to what you're talking about. You're talking about overtime, the way I read it. But you're talking about half-assed, it's not done properly. Your fire department in turn, when you go to Concord, they're a Class B town. Why? Because of how they operate their fire departments down there. They are an inspection service. They go out and inspect everything to keep the property up so that they're still paying taxes. In our town, all we're doing is hiring a bunch of firemen to get in the truck and change around and follow around behind the ambulance. They're not doing a good job out of the thing. It's not done properly. And from that end, and it should be done administrative-wise, and you should be doing it to try to see if the people in the town could save money on their homeowners policies, their commercial properties, in dealing with it. There's only got two towns in the whole North Country that have got full-time firemen, which is Littleton and Berlin. But you're jumping the gun, and you've got an adding employees on that thing and paying for it. You people jump the gun, basically, on what you've done. It's not done properly.
So,
Yeah,
did you?
yep, and the ISO rating is something that, in the past, Chief Mercieri and I have talked and looked at. I think there's a number of criteria, like, and Bruce knows, I'm sure, a lot more about it than I do, but everything from water storage to, percentage of buildings that are sprinklered to,
How much
the number
water
of.
pressure you have,
Yep, water pressure, age of infrastructure.
the amount of trucks you have, what you have for
Yep.
equipment, amount of manpower, all of that stuff should be taken into consideration before you're hiring any extra men.
Yeah.
It's a poor thing of what you've done for being, trying to save hiring people out of, just to save on overtime.
Well, we
it's
will
good
thank
synergy.
you for sharing that, Brian.
With, kind of in conjunction with that, I wrote a letter to the board within the last 2 years, on behalf of myself and other insurance agencies in town, as well as insurance companies as a whole. In conjunction with that, we have not had anybody that I guess you could say really do the so-called code enforcement. And the insurance companies, they're kind of like relying on the insurance companies to say, oh, you can't have a wood stove in your garage where you park your car. That's, state code's always been there, it hasn't gone away, but there's no one, and Chief Mercieri said nothing I can do about it, because no one's given anybody the authority to do it. And there's a lot of different things like that where it's all life safety. It falls back on life safety. If you're going to be hiring people, you should be, like my father's saying, really looking at the job descriptions, saying, okay, we're gonna have 2 new people. Instead of just standing around waiting for the bell to go off, go out and do wood stove inspections, which they do. I mean, don't get me wrong, they do that. But I'm saying implement that to be more like what Concord's doing. So it's safety and it's tax revenue between the two.
Yep. I mean, those are good points, and I know that David Houghton right now has been working on, I think, has the full certifications for all kinds of different code and life safety, and he's also right now working with the current firefighters. There's 2 who are interested in pursuing getting highly certified for inspections, and so he's trying to help each one of them further that. So those are good points, and
I got another
something like
question.
that.
Are we paying the ex-fire chief any money? Is he getting any money?
Yeah, we have him in a position to help us with the continuation of some of the emergency management COVID.
How much money are you paying him?
I don't recall how much it is specifically. He's on a limited part-time basis, and he's not functioning as the fire chief, but in the role to keep some continuity during the
Why would you be
transition
doing
through.
that? That's a responsibility. If you're gonna be putting a chief in, it would be his responsibility.
Right now, we have an interim contracted fire chief through Municipal Resources Incorporated, and they're working on a part-time schedule. So it's a good utilization of the taxpayer funds to be able to, keep everything moving as cheaply and as efficiently as possible, so.
The other
Okay.
thing, there's been 8 drownings since I wrote that letter to the state of New Hampshire within the last 3 months. I just want to point that out. The other one is that each one of you now owe $80,433 to the federal government based on all the grants that you completely have. Each one of you, that's how much the debt is per person. So make sure when you leave here, you pay your bill.
So is there anything else from the board? We are going to be going into non-public. So we want to thank everybody for their input and appreciate it.
You want a motion to go into non-public?
I do.
Which RSA was
This is the
that?
first one, RSA.
I will make a motion to go into non-public by RSA 91-A:3, 2A, Chad Stearns.
I'll second it, Roger Emerson.
Okay, Carrie Gendro. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, good.